This weekend produced some really shocking, terribly bad PR images for Germany. Images of fascists brandishing imperial German flags, flags of the German empires, storming the Reichstag, the parliament building in Berlin, went around the world. So it begs the question, are the Nazis back and about to gain power in Germany? Before I get started, I'd just like to say that I didn't really plan on doing this video. This is an improvised video that I've slotted into the schedule. I was planning on doing something else. I've been working on another video for some time now. But as it seems is the norm these days, every week there is some item of news that I have to comment on. Some group of idiots has made the headlines, and it's just something that I can't really justify passing up on. So I'm afraid the video is going to be a little bit chaotic in nature. I've not really made any notes or prepared in any way, but I thought it was important to comment on this. Yes, and I'm obviously talking about the images that went around the world following the protests in Berlin against the corona measures, lockdown measures, mask wearing, etc. They were organised by a group that calls itself Querdenken 711, or Lateral Thinkers 711. The 711 comes from the three first figures of the postcode area in Stuttgart, because the group originates from Stuttgart, but it's turned into a national movement, a Germany-wide movement. These are a group that protests against the measures taken by governments, local government and national government, to keep the coronavirus under control. The wearing of masks. They are very often backed up by conspiracy theories about some kind of big plot by whoever, New World Order, Bill Gates. I really don't want to get into that. In Germany is of course you have a right to protest. That is written into the constitution, the basic law, Grundgesetz in Germany, and it's quite right to uphold that. There was some debate as to whether this march, as it was going to go ahead, this demo was going to go ahead. The local authorities originally banned it, but there was an appeal in the courts, and the court upheld the appeal and said the protest can go ahead. Now, of course, the problem with this kind of protest is that these people are protesting against legal measures that also obviously apply when it comes to protesting. And I have been at demonstrations recently during the coronavirus period, and we have had to observe very strict laws about physical distancing and wearing masks. Granted, the protests that I've been attending have nothing to do with the coronavirus, of course. The protests that I have attended, there were only like 200 people there, but a big police presence, and also it's compulsory to read out the rules beforehand. The organizer has to read out the rules and make sure that everybody abides to the rules about wearing masks and keeping a physical distance from people not in your group, not from your household. And what happened with these protests, of course, these people are corona deniers. They do not believe there is a disease, or they believe the disease is harmless, and it's just a big, I don't know. We're not going to go into actually the actual things of it, but it was very important that they were allowed to protest. I think that's good. I think it's a constitutional right. But there are also in the clauses that address, in the clauses of the Constitution that address your right to protest, also recognise that the right to protest may be affected by other laws, which of course in this case is strict laws on physical distancing and wearing masks, etc. Now, the protest was very quickly broken up, and what is the march part, the actual procession around Berlin, was cancelled. It proved impossible to do so because we had a really strange situation. To explain, in Germany there is a difference between a demonstration and what is called a Kundgebung. A demonstration could involve a march, a procession round somewhere, but a Kundgebung is more of a static thing where speakers I mean, I've actually looked this up in the dictionary. I've not found a satisfactory translation for this. If you have got a good English translation for Kundgebung, please do comment down below. Let me know what it is. But it's, if I understand it rightly, it's basically the speech part, that there's a gathering in one place whereby there are various speakers that are allowed to address the protesters. Now, that was not cancelled. That was allowed to go ahead. There were several thousand protesters, not as many as the protesting group, of course, themselves claimed, but there were many thousands, and it was impossible to disperse the crowd. And it eventually all came to a head when a group of maybe 20, 30 fascists, and there is absolutely no way to express this another way, these are fascists. The big debate between the protesters and people criticising the protesters has been who is marching, and there is a minority hijacking this protest, and they are the parties of the far right and the organisations of the far right, and it's extremely clear that these are fascist, extreme right-wing groups that were attacking the entrance to the Reichstag, to the Parliament building. They were all carrying the imperial flags, what are known as Reichsflaggen, and in part the military flags, the war flags of the German Empire. Now, let's get one thing straight. There is a group that calls itself Citizens of the Empire, and they claim they are not extreme right, they are not from the extreme right, they are not fascists, they are simply denying the legitimacy of the modern federal German state, and they choose to carry flags which were indeed used in earlier incarnations of the German Reich or Empire, so the Second Empire, not the more well-known Third Reich under Hitler. But there is only one reason why people carry these flags. They are red, white and black. It is because these are not explicitly banned. They are not on the index of banned items in Germany, whereas a swastika, which is the explicit, the newer symbol of the Nazi regime, the swastika is banned. It is a loophole to be able to carry your colours. If you carry one of these flags, you are either very stupid or you are a Nazi. It is as simple as that. And these people storming the entrance to the Parliament building were Nazis, and it made for very, very alarming, very, very graphic, very being sensationalist about it, very sellable, a very sellable image for the world's press. And I'm being someone who keeps my eye on the world's press. I read papers, headlines, and I'm very much in touch with people from Spain and in the UK. Believe me, this went around the world, and it was a terrible, terrible bit of PR for Germany. People on the outside that don't know Germany will just have seen Nazis storming the Parliament building, and we're thinking, oh my god, here we go again. Is Hitler back? Or are the Nazis back? People who know this channel know that I'm a resident in Germany. I was born in the UK, grew up in the UK, but I've taken on German citizenship, and I see myself, this channel, the purpose of this channel, one of its many purposes is to act as an embassy. I see myself as an ambassador for a country, for Germany, a modern community, modern society, a modern state that I really love. I identify with this place, and my mission with the channel is to tell people. I know I have a very large German audience, but one of my missions is to tell people outside of Germany what a great place Germany is, reflect the reality of Germany, sometimes criticize the things that could be better, but in general, explained to people why I chose to build my life here, to have my home here, and what a great place it is. And so I had to address this, and I'm going to get to my point eventually, but the point is, it's not bad news, and the very simple answer to the question is no, the far right is not taking over in Germany. I wanted to just quickly explain what was happening, and explain also why it's not really necessarily time for alarm. There is a problem I have with these protest marches. The people who criticise the majority, they are a majority, who are not Nazis, who are not fascists, who have never had anything to do with the far right, who join these marches, go to these protests. They defend themselves by saying it's only a minority that are fascists from the far right. It is true, but first of all, it's a very, very obvious, very clear presence. These protests are something that both the extreme right parties and splinter groups, really strange, small, very extreme, marginal groups of the extreme right, like the NPD, parties, for example, like the NPD, who are never ever going to get past what's called the 5% clause. There's a hurdle in German politics at certain levels. Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think it applies at Kommunalwahl level, that's the local town hall, local authority elections, but at national level certainly there is a 5% hurdle, which was introduced in the Federal Republic of Germany to prevent extremist parties from gaining a foothold. So you have to get at least 5% of the vote to get into any form of government at national level. Now, these groups will always remain below the 5% hurdle. And NPDs, I think in the 90s, the Republikaner got closest to doing it. But there has been a change in recent years. The AfD, the AfD, the Alternative for Germany, as they call themselves, who are admittedly a relatively broad spectrum from what you'd call ultra-conservative to quite simply Nazis, fascists. They have one wing which is quite simply fascist, and all the rhetoric and all the populist nonsense that they come out with is deliberately stirring up racism, whether the people are actively racist or not. It's a party that plays with fire. It looks for the votes of the white working class by creating false invented enemies. The foreigner, look, he's taking your job, whilst also having a completely neoliberal capitalist policy program, which would absolutely do nothing for Germany's white working class. But we're getting off the point. These groups, including the AfD, have attached themselves to this protest, and people are still prepared to walk shoulder to shoulder with them and tolerate the presence of these extreme right groups. Okay, certain parties have come out and spoken and said it's rather black and white. If you protest with Nazis, then that's just wrong. You don't protest with Nazis. And I don't know that it's that simple. I personally would have a big problem with it as soon as I'm at a cause that I think is just, and next to me up pop 5 or 6 people with imperial flags, Nazi paraphernalia. I would at least for that day immediately leave and think hard about the motives, who is driving this. And there's another point as well that I think they're all missing. The 711 group, the lateral thinkers, Querdenken 711, the actual people, the organisers, the people given the microphone, could be heard repeatedly calling for the abolishment of the basic law, the German constitution, and the writing of a new constitution. So at least this is a non-constitutional movement, and it is thus very dangerous. When I took on German citizenship. Now, as a normal German citizen, you don't have to do this, but as a new German citizenship, you have to swear allegiance, abidance to the German constitution. You have to swear an oath. You can see it in my video about taking on German nationality. And, you know, the constitution has its purpose. It's a very important document that saw Germany after the war transist from a fascist dictatorship to a modern democracy that it is now. And also, I think there's been a change over recent times in that the first things I heard were, this is against the basic law. There were claims from protesters that the measures introduced to control the coronavirus were in contravention of their human rights based on the basic law, the German constitution. And now there's been a shift that I seem to have perceived. There is more of a move to abolish the basic law. And it's very easy to call for that in the name of more democracy or more human rights, more freedom. But I think this is something that's very susceptible to being hijacked by people with bad intentions. You get rid of the basic law, the Grundgesetz, and you have a vacuum. And these vacuums of uncertainty are often filled by groups with malicious intentions, by the extreme right, by fascists. Now, the good news is it's not working. It's not working. The AfD has dropped so far in the polls. As I say, I'm sorry, I've not prepared too well for this. I do have some sources. I will possibly show them on the screen when I've finished editing, but at least down below, a couple of articles that I've been reading in various newspapers. The Guardian article, for instance, I will show something of that. But I just want to summarise in general now to get across the main message. The AfD, ever since the polling, the opinion polls in April, have been losing relevance. They have been losing in the polls. They have dropped below 10% in opinion polls for the first time in a long time. I mean, they have 12% presence from the last election. They had phenomenal election results. Terrible for German society, but great for this awful organisation that calls himself a party. So they're down to like a level back in April already, whereas you would expect populist right parties to profit from emergency situations. They have had the opposite effect. They have become less and less relevant with every step, and I think there are various theories about that. I will link these articles. Some of the comments are quite interesting about why this may be, but at the moment I just want to offer my explanation, and also the main thing is that they are losing their standing and losing support. Now, I think that is partly to do with the way that the crisis has been handled here in Germany. I've said on a few occasions that I am not Angela Merkel's biggest fan. I am not in line with her policies and would never vote for her party. And I'm also a big critic of the Grand Coalition. I think the SPD should have gone into the opposition as they planned after the last election. I wanted German politics to refresh. I wanted a strong opposition, but it failed, and in the interest of continuity and getting anything done, I suppose there was a logic to it, they went back into coalition government with the CDU, SPD, CDU. And I think they've handled the crisis as well as you possibly can, with it being completely new. Angela Merkel, she's this terribly boring, grey, non-passionate figure, but exactly the type of figure that you need, a science background. And I feel we have come through this, we're still in the crisis, we are living this crisis much more comfortably than other places. Look at the USA, look at the UK, look at how Spain has suffered. We've done okay we really can't complain. So on the one hand, there's that. The polling has shown that the CDU in particular have maintained their good standing at around 38% in the polls at the moment. The Greens have pretty much stayed where they are, and the SPD I think have also gained. They've for the first time they've actually seen their look on the up. They're actually profiting from the handling of this crisis. So my message is that despite all the odds, the main danger is not the real hard right, and I know it makes for great headlines and it made for really startling images, because just the sight of those imperial flags in front of what was the building of the imperial parliament as well, which is now the symbol of German democracy, is alarming itself. It makes for great headlines, or very bad headlines, but we've got to keep our eye on the actual reality of this, and it's very important to realise that the main danger in this is not the 20 psychopaths with their Nazi flags storming the thin police line in front of the Parliament building. It's groups like the AfD that actually get into mainstream politics by feigning some kind of legitimacy. And it's also, while I say the word legitimacy, it's the legitimization of these groups. They are integrated into this protest and allowed to take part in this protest and maybe shape it. Those are the dangers, but at the moment Germany is a democracy. The majority of the population of Germany is sensible and has appreciated the leadership that we have had. Of course, not everything is perfect. I absolutely support people's right to question whether things have been done right. I don't want to make it too personal, but some of the subventions, there's been a lot of money found. I mean, isn't it interesting that whenever there is a crisis, just how socialist governments can become, financing all kinds of things, rescuing banks and rescuing big business, handouts for Lufthansa, saving the airline business, whatever. You can be cynical about things like that, whereas for me, I have not been entitled to a single penny as a freelance worker. Penny, figure of speech, of course we don't have pennies here, we have cents. By all means, criticise. There is a right to vote, a right to protest in the Constitution of Germany. I uphold that, I fully support that. And as I say, I wanted to make this video a positive video, and I think it was one of the satirical programs produced by the Bavarian TV, the regional TV company. I forget the name of the company, I shall put it up on screen right now. They said after the protests, everybody's talking about this one event and about the minority that is making for some alarming images, but let's concentrate on the majority, the 72 million inhabitants of Germany, the over 90% of the population that thinks the measures to save us to get through the coronavirus crisis are correct or not even strict enough. And as I say, the opinion polls that have shown the far right losing ground at every stage. It's not working out for them. They have hijacked this protest, and I think we need to be robust in. I think those that claim to belong to the protest, whatever they believe, up to them now to say we distance ourselves from the fascists, to be robust and say it was a minority and we don't support it. That's obviously not my place to do. I am very much on the outside of that, and I just wanted to give you this positive slant. No, and quite categorically say no, the Nazis are not back. no fascists, no extreme right group are on the verge of taking over power. Quite the contrary, our democracy is robust enough to survive this, and the majority of the population is very sensible and very much against this. So for those of you watching from outside Germany, just want to say this: we're alive and well. Don't worry, we have one of the best functioning societies at the moment. I think we've got some of the best leadership. We're going to come out of this. We're going to come out of this with a much reduced extreme right wing of politics, with less power, less relevance, and we'll get through this. Stay safe, stay healthy, all of you. We'll see you on the other side. We'll be out of this, and we'll look back, and maybe we won't laugh, but we will look back and say, we've done it. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, I promise I'll carry on with something a bit more light-hearted in the next video, or at least less political, less serious, and get back to something a little bit more entertaining. But I thought it was important to do this and give my little slant on it. You'd probably have been wondering where's the video otherwise. So thanks very much for watching. If you haven't done so, subscribe, give me a thumbs up. Every little helps, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.